solutions too, but I've never, I haven't yet, as of yet, really gotten my hands dirty and gotten in there and started doing it myself in many ways. Because whenever I would go and travel for a presentation, you know, I would dabble, I would learn, and I would, you know, do things here and there. But my main focus for the longest time was making the documentary, working the book, doing the presentations, trying to you know, get the Hanged Man site up and have the forums going and everything like that. But all of it came down to the understanding that I can't forget that I myself am a representation of what I'm trying to get across to people. So it would be absolutely hypocritical if I weren't actually doing these things. And it was just it was a reflection that brought me to where we are now with you and Stephen, and also some cooperation with people out in Australia, up in Canada, down in Brazil, down in South America, in in Amsterdam. There are a few India that I'm speaking with. So there's people from all over that I've been talking with about actually getting out into their villages, getting out into their areas, their necks of the woods, and actually getting my hands dirty and doing some of this work. Because it's not all, a lot of what I've been learning about lately is permaculture, is is growing food, being in touch and having an actual relationship with our food. Because I think that's another thing that I'm going to be getting into in the audio book that I'm working on right now. Is in many ways we've lost our relationship with food, you know, and our relationship with several things that maintain our existence. And when you lose that appreciation and you lose that that interrelationship with these things, then what you start noticing is a degradation in any and all appreciation for anything. You know, those things that, except for those things that give us pleasure or convenience or comfort. You know, those base desires that it's almost like, you know, a rat being hit by two electrodes, one, you know, like one that zaps him and tells him not, you know, to go for that bar, and then when it goes to the other bar, it gives him a treat. You know, that seems to be what drives humanity right now. Is it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. You know, people are just looking for their own comforts and convenience. And that's wrapped up in the self, in the ego, and not in the self. That's wrapped up in the self, and the persona, the ego, and it's devoid of self. It's devoid of the true essence. And so, what I'm trying to do is walk the walk instead of just talking the talk, because I get the question a lot. People think, you know, people ask me what I've truly been doing as of late, and what I've done in this world to make a change. And I don't, you know, in looking back, I don't want it to be that I've just told other people my opinions. Right. So I mean, there's quite a few things. Feeding people is one of them. Teaching people how to feed themselves, I should say, is actually more accurate, because giving people a fish is going to feed them for a day, whereas teaching them to fish, that right there, that's having them learn from the process and having them being able to take care of themselves, so hopefully one day they can pay it forward. And that's more what I'm interested in, because that's, you know, you have to take part as being the observer to learn. You have to. And it's in a subtle way in training people. So if I can go around and not only to teach people in these areas, but also take part and to help build villages, to help people in their own personal struggles in their lives, and then also to help show people how to feed themselves in ways. These are just small examples of things that I've been doing, and it's obviously going to be growing a lot more in the next few months. So when it comes to working with you and Stephen, I know we haven't gotten all the details solidified yet, but what we've talked about so far is sometime maybe this coming spring, me getting down to Zambia and possibly making a documentary that shows the process of what's actually being done, because in that sense, doing both things at the same time. I said I was trying to do more than just teach and more than just make documentaries, but if I can get down there and actually help and actually walk the walk while also working on another documentary, then that could possibly spread this ideal to other people. And that's how communities are built. Communities aren't built through anything less than ideals. The essence, the common, what community comes from is common unity, that understanding. So that common unity has to be an ideal. And every single organism is built upon many smaller organisms that have the same essence, the same ideal, the same principles. And if we could just take this inner reflection of our own individuality and the community within us, and expand that a little bit more in the communities, then I think the solution will be unstoppable. For one, we won't need to write books on the solution. We won't need to, give presentations and lectures and talks on the solution. If it's inherent within us, if all of our communities are being built based upon this principle, then it would be unstoppable. And that's truly where I think we're headed, is the fact that building these communities of like mind and making sure that people are understanding their own role and how powerful they really are and how they're actually contributing to the condition of the world. If that message could be spread, then the solution would be absolutely unstoppable, and it would be viral. It would reach worldwide quicker than pretty much anything else. I mean, we have the internet, we have many things now to spread information, but if that information could be used in a sense not to disempower people, not to show people how powerful the elite are, but to show how powerful we are, because we're the ones who created the elite. Let's not forget the ability to solve these problems, and that's where all of my work comes in, and that's where this cooperation between you and Stephen and myself is coming in, because this is just a small example of what we're trying to do throughout the entire world, which is spreading this example so people can help themselves, because this world isn't going to be saved by an individual. There is no second coming of some individual that's going to save the planet. It's humanity-wide. It's all of us. And unless there is some form of community all around, and it doesn't have to be community as in living next to each other. It doesn't have to be a common understanding with all people, such as a political ideal, because people love to jump to the conclusion that if everybody has the same ideal, then that's somehow a global governance of some sort, and people tend to let that run wild in their mind. But unfortunately, if you look at it, these same individuals are missing the point that that's how nature is run, through a common ideal. And that ideal could be as vague and as simple as do unto others, or just accept and embrace the way that the world is actually changing, instead of looking at it as such a demonic and destructive thing that's supposed to planet. Really looking at it for what it truly is, embracing the changes. If we were to embrace the changes, not the destruction, not the decay, not the corruption, but embracing just the natural forces that are going on within us, then everything else will harmonize itself. Because right now we're going through a global panic attack. I actually show in some of my work that the same thing that that people are medicating themselves with, right now to take care of the anxiety and problems of depression. We're actually going through a global panic attack, a global readjustment to the way that nature actually is. Because all a panic attack truly is, if you're talking about an individual, a panic attack is a disconnect between a person's beliefs and ideals and reality. So the panic attack comes from nature trying to equal that organism with nature. And people fight it and fight it and fight it. And what do they say with panic attacks? You can't fight it, because fighting it makes it worse. It just makes it worse. So what we're seeing right now is people around the world are going through this very uncomfortable readjustment period, this global panic attack in a sense, and people are fighting it. People feel that they need to take up arms and engage in battle against these changes. And in many ways, if we were to just allow for the structure that we've built, and I'm not talking about the political systems and things like that, but I mean the belief structures that we've built around us that enslave us in some way. If we were to allow them to naturally disintegrate, naturally just do what nature does with these beliefs and ideals, which has a natural catabolic aspect of it, nature will destroy all these false beliefs. And then what emerges from the ashes of that? New life. The new evolved, because it's not just physical things that evolve, it's the mind, it's consciousness that evolves, and everything else is a representative of that. Everything else follows the direction of consciousness. So that's why in my work, how are you going to change the world? How are you going to introduce any changes in the world if you don't even know what your consciousness is doing? If you don't have any understanding of how consciousness plays a role in the world, then how are we truly going to change anything? Because we don't even understand the force that leads to change, which is consciousness. So that, in a sense, that's the disconnect that I'm talking about between nature, between reality, and our beliefs. And our beliefs are causing our old ideals and these outmoded beliefs and constructs and dogmas that we are so addicted to. That is what's causing all these problems right now, because we refuse to take a step back and observe what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of consciousness and change and the disconnect and getting back in balance with the beliefs and the nature, what does Ben Stewart think about 2012?
That's a loaded question.
I know.
I'll tell you what. I've done. I did an interview this past May for a newspaper down in Rio de Janeiro, and I also just got this question up in Canada when I was doing my presentation this past weekend, and the thing about 2012 that I've gotten into it in Esoteric Agenda, but from that point, it's actually the more that I do research, and I've researched countless amount of hours on 2012, on the Mayan culture, on many other indigenous hold some of the same mythological values and beliefs that the Mayans did. The more and more I research all of this, the more how should I say it, elusive and interpretive 2012 has become to me, meaning that there's more than one subtle meaning to the whole idea of the change that many people talk about that's coming in 2012. Now, I gave a very specific answer to that in Esoteric Agenda, but the more and more I've researched it, I've actually found that the understanding of that culture, the understanding of the Mayan culture was leaps and bounds different. I can't say more advanced, because that would be the easiest thing to say, is that they were more advanced, but it was different than the way we live today. So right now, if I were to that resonates with people, that doesn't mean it's right. If I were to give an answer that every listener were to actually say, oh my God, that makes so much sense, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's right. It means that that's what people wanted to hear, or that's what's in line with our current zeitgeist. That's what with the current intellect and the current mind today. That's what resonated. But what I can say about it is the Jaguar priests and those individuals because that was an initiatic race. That was an initiatic culture back then. They had their own mystery religion there. They had their own levels of initiation. They had their exoteric, their mesoteric, and their esoteric. And they I think it was Manly Palmer Hall that was actually talking about in one of his books, Melchizedek and the Mystery of Fire. He actually a lot of the insights of the Mayans, which is really, really interesting, going into the cave and some of the things that they would face, such as in a completely dark cave there to be